There is a specific kind of excitement that feels almost unbearable to keep inside. You get an idea. A real one. The kind that makes your chest tight and your mind race at 2 a.m. And the first thing you want to do, the very first instinct, is tell someone. Don't. Not yet. And by the end of this, you'll understand exactly why that impulse, as natural as it feels, might be the single most dangerous thing you can do to something you actually care about. In 2009, a psychologist named Peter Gollwitzer published research that quietly dismantled one of the most common pieces of advice in personal development, the idea that sharing your goals with others keeps you accountable. His studies found the opposite. When people announced their intentions and received social recognition for them, even just a nod, even just someone saying, "That sounds amazing," they were significantly less likely to follow through. The recognition itself created a premature sense of completion. The brain, in a very literal sense, confused talking about the thing with doing the thing. And here's the part that should stop you cold. The more excited the people around you were, the more they validated your idea, the less likely you were to actually build it. Encouragement, at the wrong moment, is its own kind of trap. Marcus had been writing the same novel for 11 years. Not because he lacked talent. His friends would tell you he was the most naturally gifted writer they knew. But every time he started a new chapter, he told someone about it. His sister, his coworkers, anyone who would listen. And they always responded the same way. "That sounds incredible. I can't wait to read it. You're going to be published for sure." And Marcus would feel, for a few hours, like the book already existed. Like the work was already done. Then he'd sit back down at his desk and find the page completely empty. 11 years. For partial drafts. 0 finished chapters. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't undisciplined. He was feeding the idea to the wrong audience before it had learned to feed itself. Here's something nobody talks about when they discuss sharing your goals. The people who respond to your unfinished idea are not responding to your idea. They're responding to your enthusiasm. They're mirroring your energy back at you. And that mirror feels like confirmation, like proof that you're on the right path. But it's not proof of anything except that people are naturally wired to match the emotional temperature of the person in front of them. Their excitement tells you nothing about whether your idea is good. It tells you everything about how alive you looked when you described it. So what is work? There's a concept in architecture called the load-bearing wall. It's the wall that everything else depends on. You don't find out which walls are load-bearing by asking someone. You find out by building the structure and watching what holds. A new idea is the same. You don't find out if it's real by describing it to people. You find out by carrying it alone long enough to discover whether it can hold weight. And that process, that private, unglamorous, unwitnessed process, is exactly what most people skip. Because it's uncomfortable. Because it's lonely. Because it requires you to sit with something fragile and uncertain without the temporary relief of someone else telling you it's going to be okay. Marcus eventually figured this out. But not through advice. Through exhaustion. After the 4th abandoned draft, he made one change. He stopped talking about the book entirely. Not because he gave up. Because he was tired of the cycle. He woke up early. He wrote before his phone was unlocked. He told no one what chapter he was on. No one what the plot had become. No one how close he was getting. For 8 months, the book existed only between him and the page. And something unexpected happened in that silence. The characters stopped performing for an imaginary reader. They started behaving like real people. The story found its own logic. And Marcus found something he hadn't felt in 11 years. The specific satisfaction of progress that doesn't need a witness. There's a Japanese concept called shokunin, roughly translated as the spirit of the craftsman. But the translation misses something important. A shokunin doesn't just practice their craft. They disappear into it. The work becomes the entire point. Not the recognition. Not the response. Not the story of how they made the thing. Just the thing itself, made as well as it can possibly be made. The highest-rated sushi chef in Tokyo, a man named Jiro Ono, spent decades perfecting a single dish before he allowed himself to be evaluated by anyone. Not for approval, for accuracy. He wanted to know when the work was genuinely ready, not when he had run out of patience for the silence. That distinction matters more than almost anything else in this conversation. Most people stop working in private not because the work is finished, but because the silence becomes too heavy to carry. They need the relief of feedback, the reset of someone else's opinion. And so they share too soon, not from confidence, but from discomfort. And the moment they do, the work changes shape. It starts bending toward what they think the audience wants. It starts optimizing for approval rather than truth. And the original idea, the raw, strange, specific thing that made it worth starting, quietly disappears under the weight of other people's expectations. So here's the question that actually matters. How long can you protect something you care about before you need someone else to tell you it's worth caring about? Because that duration, that window of private commitment, is where everything real gets built. The novel, the business, the creative work, the changed habit, the rebuilt life. None of it happens in the announcement. All of it happens in the silence between starting and being ready. Marcus finished his book 14 months after he stopped talking about it. He didn't post about finishing it. He didn't tell his friends that night. He sat with it quietly for 3 days. Read it start to finish. And for the first time in 11 years, he felt something he didn't have a word for. It wasn't pride exactly. It was more like ownership. The feeling that this thing existed because of him, not because of everyone who had told him it would be great. He submitted it to publishers 6 weeks later. The book sold. And when people asked him how long it took to write, he always said the same thing. About 8 months. Not 11 years. 8 months. Because the other 11 years weren't writing. They were rehearsing for an audience that was never going to show up anyway. Whatever you're building right now, whatever idea has been sitting in the back of your mind, half-started, waiting for the right moment to begin. The right moment is not when you find someone who believes in it. The right moment is when you decide to believe in it privately, for long enough that the belief becomes irrelevant. Because the work will speak. Work always speaks, but only after you've given it enough silence to find its voice.